Now, the next part of the series, we're going to actually use our lightsaber, or hold our lightsaber, with our character. But to do this, we have to first create a character. So let's go into our game mode folder. Let's right click, do blueprint class, and we're going to create a character. This is going to be the character that we control, or the character that holds the lightsaber. Click on that, and then I'm just going to call my character Jedi. So this currently doesn't have much in it. It's just a blank template for us to use. Now I'm going to go over this part fairly quickly, or at least the initial parts of this fairly quickly, because I covered this in a lot of depth in the beginner series. So while I will explain everything, if you're a little bit stuck, it might be worth going back and having a look at that quickly. So let's open up our Jedi. Here we are. So here's your capsule to start with. Now right now this is completely plain, nothing here. If you would have spawned this, you would be able to do nothing. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a component up here, and I'm going to add a camera so we can actually see. Here we go. I'm going to pull this up to about eye level, which is about there. There we go. So now our character, when we spawn as it, will be able to see. Once I've done that, let's get the character working first, then we'll get it to hold the lightsaber. So go over to your event graph, and you'll have these here. I'm just going to delete them, get rid of them. Now we're going to bind keys, or we're going to use the bound keys, sorry, to move our character. So first go up to edit, into project settings, and just double check where your inputs are. So if you scroll down the left hand side here, click inputs, here you go. So we're going to need some action mappings, and we're going to need some axis mappings. Now mine are already done for me, as this is the previous project. So let's have a quick look. Axis mappings, you're going to need each of these. So if you haven't got these already, click that plus button and add them in. So move forward, I've bound to W and S, W with a scale of 1, S with a scale of -1. Move right, I've bound D with a scale of 1, and A with a scale of -1. So W moves forward, S moves back, D moves right, A moves left. Look up, I've bound that to mouse Y with a scale of -1. And for turn, I've bound this to mouse X with a scale of 1. So if you need to, pause the video, have a look at those, make sure that you've got those exact key configurations there ready to use. In the action mappings, and there's a couple in here already, we're going to use interact, which is bound simply to E. So when we press E, we interact. Jump, which will just be spacebar. And we're going to use click, which is left mouse button. I'm also going to add another one in here. I'm going to simply call this right click. And I'm going to bind that to the right mouse button. Can I move this up? Okay, so weapon mode, reload, velocity up, velocity down. You don't need these, so you can ignore these ones. The ones you do need are interact, which is bound to E, jump, which is bound to spacebar, click, which is your left mouse button, and right click, which is your right mouse button. Again, ignore these ones in between. These are just for some different projects which I was playing around with previously. So ignore those and make sure you've got the 4 action mappings which are currently open. So you should have 4 action mappings and 4 axis mappings. Like I said, pause the video if you need to, and make sure that they're your inputs ready for this project. Okay, I'm going to go back into my event graph for my Jedi character model. Now, right click first, and I'm going to say input, axes, and I'm going to need these. So the first one I'm going to do is move forward. So I'm going to click on that, pull a strand from the main pin, and add movement input with an axis value of, there we go. So make sure that's done first. We're not going to touch the target because it is ourself that we're going to move. However, we do need to actually tell the character, tell the blueprint what it is or where it is that we're going to move. So we're going to use the camera to do this. So I'm going to pull the camera in from the components. There it is. I'm going to get world rotation. There we go. Now I can't plug this into there, or if I do that, it's not quite what I want. So I'm going to pull a strand out and I'm going to say get forward vector. There it is. So it knows which way is forward, and plug it in. That should now move forward and back. And I'm going to do the exact same thing. Input, axes, and I'm going to do move right here. Pull a strand from it, add movement, input. There we go. Again, target will be ourselves. Instead, this time I'm going to get right vector and plug it in there. So the character now should have forward, back, left, and right movement. Okay, they were the hardest ones. Another one now. We're going to do an input axes again, and this one is going to be for turn. We're going to use turn now. So pull a strand from here, and instead of movement input this time, we're going to use a different node. So turning uses yaw, and looking up and down uses pitch. So I'm going to say add controller yaw input there. There we go. Yaw as in Y-A-W, not Y-O-U-R. And plug the axis value in there. That one's done. Right click, input, axes, and the last one, which is look up. Pull a strand, and if you remember, I said up and down is pitch, so I'm just going to type in pitch, and we're going to add controller pitch input there. Plug in the axis value. There you go. The last thing I will get us to do, if you click on camera, and we are going to just turn off if you type in pawn, P-A-W-N, at the top in the details there, just click on use pawn control rotation. That'll mean it that the camera unlocks from the body and can look independently. So once that's done, once that's ticked up there, we should be good to go. I'm going to compile that, I'm going to minimize it, and I'm going to spawn our character in the world. So there he is, you can spawn in there. Now if you remember from the last series, you just need to search in the details, and if you type in POSS, you can see your auto possessed player, and we're just going to turn that to player 0. And there we go. So now when I play, here we go. Well, now I'm continuously moving to the right, which means I probably haven't attached my axes properly. No, I haven't. My apologies there. So make sure you plug your axes in. Compile, play, and here we go. I've got full 360 looking. Move forward, move backward, move left, and move right. There we go. So I've now got a character which I can control. Now the last thing I'm going to bind here is jump. So I'm going to say input, and this time this is an action. Input action event, and I'm going to use jump here. There it is. Now when I press jump, I'm going to let Unreal work this out for me, and I'm going to simply call the jump function. Type in jump. There we go. Now that's there, if I compile, I should be able to jump. So my character's now got full movement. I could add crouching if I want to do, but in the case of this tutorial, I'm not going to bother. This is all I need. So make sure that your character is able to move freely and jump, and then we'll look at attaching or holding the lightsaber. So back in. Now all of this is for movement, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to press C. I'm not going to put a comment on there. I'm going to call this movement nodes. So I know later on if I need to look for these, because this will become a little bit busy, my movement nodes are there. I can access them easily. So for this we're going to need a couple of variables. Now variables are basically locations which hold a little bit of data. And we're going to use these variables to remember certain aspects of our character. So over here in the left hand side you can see a little drop down box for variables. Now currently we've got components camera sitting in there, and that should be the only thing in there. So we're going to create a new variable. So click this plus button here. Now the first variable I'm going to use is saber on with a question mark. Now if you're not using a lightsaber, if you're not making a weapon that can turn on or off like a lightsaber can, you can ignore this. because it's not going to be useful for you. So saber on. Now that started off as a boolean, which is perfect. That's what I want. So compile, and you'll see the default value over here is off. So what this means is my lightsaber, when I start the game, should be off. So we need to remember this for later on. The next variable I'm going to make is whether or not I'm blocking. So I'm going to click the variable, and I'm going to call it blocking. Compile again, you'll see that initially when I spawn I'm not blocking. Perfect. And the last one I'm going to do, plus variable again, and I'm going to say holding lightsaber, question mark. Compile again, and you'll see initially this is going to say we're not holding the lightsaber. Now this is going to be something which is going to be very important at the very end of this tutorial series, because one of the last tutorials I do is picking up the lightsaber. So starting off so you haven't got a lightsaber and you have to find it in the world and pick it up. So this will come in useful later, but until then we're not going to worry about this. Just leave this as saying we're not holding it, and we'll cross that bridge a little bit later. So once you've created these three variables here, there is a fourth variable, but we'll create that a little bit later. These three are the important ones. So make sure you've got these three boolean variables, which is saber on, blocking, and holding lightsaber. Once you've got those, we can then look at actually holding the lightsaber. So click on your viewport. We're going to say add component, and we're going to add a static mesh. Once you type in static mesh, you'll have a couple of different options there. Make sure you click on the static mesh with that little house symbol, okay? We don't need any of the other ones. Static mesh. And we're going to call this lightsaber hilt, or you can call it axe or sword or whatever you're holding, crowbar, whatever your melee weapon is. So lightsaber hilt. Now over in the right section here, you've got your static mesh. Now we're going to assign the static mesh, or the 3D model we made earlier, from the objects. So click on that. And I remember I called this lightsaber hilt. Click on that, and there it is. There's the lightsaber. Now, you can probably see that that lightsaber is a little bit big. Either my character is incredibly small, or that lightsaber is designed for some form of giant. Both of which I don't particularly want. And so I want this to be a realistic size, a proper size. So I'm just going to click R, and I'm going to resize this to make it a lot smaller. So that's probably appropriate. Maybe a little bit bigger. There you go. Probably about there. Now I'm going to put this around about where I think my hand is going to be. Probably there. But I'm going to have to change this. So this lightsaber we want to have in the bottom right corner of our screen. If you imagine something like Minecraft, when you're holding a sword, your sword is in the bottom right, and that's exactly what we want our lightsaber to be, and we're going to hit exactly the same way you do in Minecraft, just by swinging it forward. I'm actually going to turn this a little bit this direction. There we go. Now I'm going to compile that and just minimize it, and this probably isn't going to look correct yet. So you can see that the lightsaber is on my character, but when I play, I can't see it, or I have to look down to see it. That's incorrect as well. So let's address those. First things first, in the top left, I'd like us to make this lightsaber part of the camera, attach it to the camera. So we just hold left click and drag it onto the camera. So you can see now that lightsaber is part of the camera. This means that when this camera moves, or when we look up and down, our lightsaber moves with it. However, that does now introduce the issue of, when I play, I definitely can no longer see my lightsaber because it's moving with my camera. So I need to move that into a position which is appropriate for gameplay. So if you've got two monitors, it's much easier to do this, but you can do it on one monitor, which I'll show you now. So you can see, when you click on your character, it gives you the display window here. Now anything you move in here will update in lifetime. So if I move this up, there you are, you can see your lightsaber is now actually in view. It's a little bit close. I'm going to say maybe about there. Okay, compile that. I'll minimize it. So now when I play, I'm holding my lightsaber in my right hand. Well, that's what this is simulating, I suppose. That works for me, and I think I'll keep it like that. Now, I suppose this little part will be a bonus, because if you're using an axe or a crowbar or a sword or any other thing, a baseball bat, if you're using that, this part's done for you, because you can't activate your weapon. However, I need to. So if you're not using something like a lightsaber which has to be activated, you can move on to the next video in the series, as long as your character looks and functions like this. So this next part, I suppose, is a bonus. So I'm going to open it up, and now I need to create the blade for my lightsaber. Now, what does a lightsaber look like? It's just a beam of light. So I'm going to add component while clicked on my lightsaber, and I'm going to type in cylinder. I'm going to add that cylinder in. Now again, that's a little bit too big for a lightsaber. So let's make it a little bit smaller. It's also in the wrong place. A little bit smaller. About there perhaps. Let's position this on top of my lightsaber. Now in terms of length, that might be alright. Position it on. Not too bad. Okay, and then I'm gonna bring it up just a little bit. Should be fine. Is that? In terms of lengthwise, that doesn't look too bad. So that's how that'll be. Obviously, we're going to change the material of that. Yeah, I'm going to keep the length the way it is. Now, the top of the lightsaber doesn't end like that, in a nice flat edge. So I'm going to name that for a start. I'm going to call that saber. I'm going to copy and paste it, attach it back on. I'm going to call that saber tip. Well, actually, that's okay. So that's duplicated and made it even bigger. I don't want that a second, so I'm going to delete that. If that does happen, there's an easy way to fix this. Just detach this from everything, so make sure it's not there, and repeat that step again. Sorry, Control C, Control V, and this time it's duplicated it in the same location as the proper size. So I'm going to call this saber tip, and I'm going to pull this up a little bit. Change it from a cylinder to a sphere, a shaped sphere, and it turns into this rather large elongated sphere. I'm going to pull that down. Now, because I've copied this from the old object, or the saber object, it's the same width, which means I can quite simply pull this on top, and there it is. So instead of having a flat edge, I've now got a rounded edge. So quickly attach this back on, and there we go, sorted. Compile that, and that should be working. There we go, sorted. Now looking at this, I think my lightsaber is actually maybe a little bit high, so I'm going to bring that down. Now because my lightsaber, or the saber part of my lightsaber is attached, if I move this down, it'll bring the lightsaber, or the light part of it with it. So let's have a look at that. There we go. A little bit better. There we go, happy with that. Okay, so I've got the sword, the saber part of it. I just need to quickly make material for it. Let's compile that and close it down. So over to my materials folder. I've got a couple of materials in here. Some from the previous tutorial, some which I've also been using. But I think I want an orange lightsaber texture. So I'm going to right click material, and I'm going to call it Saber Glow. Open it up. Now let's get my color. I want a bit of an orange lightsaber. It's not quite the color I was looking for, but I'll get the glow first before I start editing that. So I'm going to plug that into a multiply. To get the multiply box, I held M and clicked, and to get the 0 here I held 1 and clicked. Let's plug that into the emissive color. And let's just do a value of 10 for a second. Let's do 50. Value of 50. Yeah, I quite like that actually. I'm going to use that color. So let's close that down. And let's go back to my Jedi. And now it's just a case of going to the viewport, clicking on the saber, and assigning the right color to the saber itself. So that was called Saber Glow. There it is. And Saber Glow. Compile it, and let's have a look. There it is. So I like the color, but that is very, very bright, as you can tell by the way it's almost washing out the entire screen. So let's bring that material down a little bit, and if that is happening to you, it just means you need to turn the glowiness, the value down here. So I'm going to put that back to 10. Now it doesn't look as I like it in that image, but when I actually play the game, that's better. So it isn't completely blocking out the entire screen now. You can still see around it, but it is obviously still quite bright, which is fine because I suppose a lightsaber would be. So I'm happy with that. I may turn it down a little bit later, but for now I'm completely happy with how that looks. So let's quickly make the ability to turn it on and off. Let's go over. Let's open up our Jedi blueprint. There it is. And let's create the code for this. Okay. Now, igniting and lowering your lightsaber is just a case of toggling the material and toggling your variables. So we're going to make sure of a couple of things first. So we're going to right click and do input action, and we're going to do interact because that was our E key, and that's why I want to actually ignite our lightsaber. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to check if we're actually holding the lightsaber. So if we're holding the lightsaber, get a branch, hold B, click. If we're holding the lightsaber, we need to be doing that first. Now we're going to use E to raise and lower the lightsaber, so we also need to check whether our lightsaber is currently on. So get saber on, and we're going to do another branch, hold B, click, pull true in. So if we're holding our lightsaber and the lightsaber is currently active, do something, or if the lightsaber isn't active, do something else. So if the lightsaber is already on, we want the lightsaber to ignite. Sorry, that's not true. If the lightsaber is already on, we want the lightsaber to lower. And if the lightsabers are off, we want the lightsaber to turn on. Now, let's do if the lightsaber is already on. If the lightsaber is on, we want to lower the lightsaber. So pull this across. And I'm going to say set material. So set visibility, actually, set visibility. So set visibility, and you can see all these different bits here. I'm going to say set the visibility of the saber to off. It's already off. So set visibility to off, and I'm going to propagate that to children. What that means is anything attached to the lightsaber will also turn off. So there we go. Lightsaber's off. Pull another strand out, or in this case actually pull saber on, set saber on. There we go. And set it to false. So now, when E is pressed, if we're holding the lightsaber, if the lightsaber is on, then it will turn the lightsaber off and set it to off. Next, we're going to do the same thing, but in this case, it's actually going to turn the lightsaber on. So, copy and paste. Pull that in there. And instead, we're going to say on. So I've done there, the same object. Instead, this time, we're going to say yes, new visibility. And then after that, we're going to tick saber on. Now, one thing I've thought of here, this isn't gonna work quite yet because our holding lightsaber is currently wrong. So click on holding lightsaber and click yes, and then recompile that. So that was click on the variable holding lightsaber and say yes, we are holding a lightsaber. Because right now we haven't implemented that functionality, so turn that on and make sure that works. So let's give it a go. There we go. Press E, and the lightsaber turned off. Press E again, the lightsaber turns on. E, there we go, off, on, off, on, off. Perfect, that's exactly what we want the lightsaber to do. So that's now working. One thing you may have noticed there, and if I play this again, press E now, nothing happened. Press E again, and it turned off. That actually happened because the lightsaber itself, the variable says that the saber is off, but we spawned and the lightsaber's on. So you're turning it on and activating the lightsaber, but it's already on. So what I can do is say, click on that, and we'll say, scroll down and tick off visible. Both of those. Compile. Click E, and this time it works straight away. So you start with your lightsaber off, and it comes back on. There we are, working. So if your lightsaber is working like that, you're ready to move on. If it isn't quite working just yet, hold fire, go back through the video, and double check that you followed all the steps correctly.